Hello and welcome to the Slapshot Syndicate podcast. Be sure to subscribe for more content, and whilst you're at it, go and follow our social media pages. They're on screen now. Now, on to the episode.
Hello, welcome to this week's episode of the Slapshot Syndicate. We're now just over halfway through the playoffs now, and things are heating up in one group, and in the other, it seems done and dusted. What have you made of it, Rossy, so far?
Well, big welcome to everybody for episode 60, first of all, which is a pretty good accomplishment in itself. But big weekend in the final in the playoffs this weekend. Group A, like you said, does seem to be conclusive. It seems that Romford have got a massive task on them this weekend, coming up against Sheffield in the sort of battle of who's going to get there. And the other two teams we'll talk about without revealing too much, but big shocks, especially in regards to our sort of predictions going into the playoffs as well.
Yeah.
Group B, just wide open, isn't it? But there was moments I imagine on Sunday morning where two sets of fans were a bit like, this could be curtains for us. I mean, it's not going to be as long an episode, I imagine, as usual in terms of reviewing every single game with us just having the 8 games, but plenty to talk about, so I'm excited for it.
Absolutely, mate. Well, no further ado, let's jump straight into it then and go into Seahawks reaction. So, Seahawks reaction this weekend, and some weekend it was. So, for those that don't know, it was a double header, Leeds and Hull. Obviously, a famous Yorkshire rivalry. It's been a bit to and fro in the past couple of years, more leaning towards Leeds. But Hull have had a good few, games there as of late, and have taken something from Leeds. We went as well. The full Slapshot Syndicate was there in attendance. There was some serious emotions going on even before we got there, weren't they?
We were wobbly, weren't we? Let's not lie. I think going into this series, this double header, in the series over the season, I think we were split like 4-4, I think. But over the last couple of games that we've played, like you said, we've got the better of Leeds. I think going into the weekend, it was very much sort of like, no one really know what to expect, the emotions were definitely high on the way down there. I know I've never really had Brad was just gabbing to me, and Brad went down in the car together. Obviously we met you there, didn't we? Brad was just gabbing like nonsense, and I kept looking at him thinking, what are you talking about? And I could tell he was just trying to pitch those sort of quiet gaps just because he didn't want to sit there and think about it. I was like, what are you talking about? But he was really nervous. Like, Brad is quite a cool, calm and collected guy, but very quiet over the weekend. I was trying to be like quietly confident, but I really didn't know how it would be. How did you feel on the way down?
I was driving for me, my sister, and a friend, and I sort of like, we were just gabbing away about other things, not even ice hockey related on the way down. So I was like, this is great, this non-issue. And it was as soon as we got in the ring and we were stood, weren't we? And as soon as I got stood near the plexi, I was just like, oh, this is serious now. And then all of a sudden, all the emotions and every sort of outcome that it could possibly go, what would happen if we won, if they won? Overtime came into it, all these sort of things. And I was just like, oh, what's best for us? What can we little accept here and move on with? But I don't know for how confident we've been over the past sort of month or so. That sort of just faded away. Like, us and other fans, we were still in agreement that MK drumming, the last Sunday, that still lived long in the memory. And a lot of people were sort of like, oh, which Seahawks are we going to get tonight? Are we going to get the good Seahawks that can put up a good fight here, or are we going to fall apart again? And I think that was the biggest worry for most fans before puck dropped.
It was a big reality check on it, the away games to MK. And I think, Matty and the lads would like to think it was an off night, but I think it was also a realisation that we are invincible. We have had an amazing run of form for the last 2 or 3 months, and that's an absolute testament to the team. But we can't go into every game expecting it. Like, I'll be the first one to hold my hand up. And after Saturday night, I was thinking we'll go to MK and this is going to be an easy 4 points this, and it wasn't the case at all. So I think with it being reversed this week and it'll be in Leeds first, you sort of always want your home game first, ideally, wouldn't you? So to sort of go to Leeds first, it was a bit of like coming off the MK loss. They've obviously worked hard during the week, but you don't know what's going to happen until the first, opening period. Really, you don't sort of you get an idea, don't you, of how they come out and how it's going to go. But yeah, I think the lead up to it was interesting.
The lead up and we was talking to a lot of fans beforehand on both sides, Leeds and Hull, and nobody could count, which way it was going to go. Nobody could be certain in what they thought was happening. Obviously, they'd back their own team, but before puck drop, it could have been anybody's game. You could have probably split the place in half, and you'd never have known what was going to happen. And then the puck dropped, and God, did the game deliver something really special, didn't it? It was a testing one of the emotions, wasn't
it? I think to fans outside of the game, when they'd seen the score, they'd have thought, God, what a boring game. But it was anything but, wasn't it? It was end to end. It was a real showcase for me of two really good defensive performances, and two netminders that played absolutely outstanding. Like, I think that was the tale of the weekend, really, for me. I think, Sam Gospel is the first I want to mention. Like, I thought he was unbelievable. He was obviously in the net for two of the periods where, towards the Seahawks fans wanted. So we obviously saw him up close and personal. Some of the saves he made was just outrageous. And I think outrageous is the right word. I think for Leeds fans, they'll probably have thought, well, that's just Sam Gozzi, and it probably is. But to see him in person and see what he can do is it just reiterates not how good he is. And then obviously Heskey on our side, it hasn't become an expectation now, but because of how good he is on a weekly basis, I think we just have grown to expect, these world-class performances, and that's exactly what we got from him as well. Leeds, obviously they're not shy of goals. They are a really great team on the break, and to go there and obviously get as good of a save percentage and the amount of saves that he got was brilliant as well.
Yeah, I mean, another key factor for Leeds as well was obviously getting Brownie back after his ban. So Kieran Brown returning to the lineup for Leeds Knights, that'd have been massive for them on the Saturday. Captain, leader, legend for the club, and I'm sure the fans would have been more than happy to have seen him on the ice. And he did turn up and try and turn the screw a bit more, but like you say, the goaltenders on both sides were top drawn. I think it was always going to be a case of tail of the tape is which goalie was going to crumble first, and it did go that way, didn't it? Just quickly, we didn't see a goal for 2 periods of ice hockey, 40 minutes without a goal. And that sort of speaks volumes. It wasn't a boring game. It was the fact that any chance that was created was quickly snuffed out by a defenseman or a goaltender. So it made it nervy the more that the goals didn't come. I remember saying to you and Bradders on the night, I was more hoping it had gone to something like 4-3 or something after 2 periods. At least it was an open game and goals were flying in. But when it's 0-0 like that, it does half keep you going.
The longer it does keep you going. It was a really exciting time, but like you say, the longer it is at 0-0 and the later it goes, you just think that one goal could be it, and it creates like an absolute mountain for you to climb, don't it? And obviously that was the case. It went so late into the game, but you're absolutely right there in terms of the netminding. If it were 2 different netminders from elsewhere in the league, no disrespect to all the other teams, the game would have probably been about 4-3. 5-4, something like that, going into the third period, because there was some really good grade A chances, and it was just some unbelievable saves off the lids, off the pads, kicking, last minute, sticking and stuff like that. It was just like, these guys are unbeatable. I can see it, but it's going to be 0-0, and we're all going to be here till 12 o'clock. It's going to be a shootout, and no one can score.
Yeah, it was wild. I mean, I do want to say that I felt maybe Leeds' attack was slightly better than Seahawks on the night. Though that was the only thing I would notice is we sort of struggled to create anything certain where you was like, oh, that's the chance there. I only seem to remember maybe 2 or 3 where I was like, that was a goal scoring opportunity. Just they seemed to close us down really well, and we did the same to them. It just when they sort of broke away and went flying up the ice, and they always seemed to have 2 or 3 players ready to go, and you thought, oh, they're going to put some nice little interchanging passes together and maybe tap it in back door, but we soon shut them down. But I think they looked the more threatening on the night, but it was still a very equal game all the way through.
Yeah, they did, definitely. And obviously they outshot us by a fair bit, to be fair. And again, it was interesting, wasn't it? Because we obviously was playing the 4-line hockey, and they was only playing 3 due to the amount of injuries that they was carrying. But the way Leeds set up, like the transitions that they get, they're just lethal, aren't they? Like they're so up and they're so defensively like solid, and the structure's really good. But as soon as you give them an inch, they're on you, like the pounds, don't they? And that's one of the things I remember us talking about. But again, we just talk about Heskey and obviously how well he did in terms of, keeping that at bay. And it was really needed, wasn't it? Because that's literally it. I remember, like you say, I remember quite a few chances of Leeds where you think, oh, this is it. And I know that I maybe said a few curse words under my breath when they were going through one goal, like shh, 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 shh. And then Heskey comes up big again. And, there's massive moments in the matches, isn't there, where, if they don't make those saves, it's game over. And yeah, really, really interesting one. I think as we grew into the game, like we came out quite well, if I remember correctly. But then I think the longer we didn't score, I think that suited Leeds. And I think they got more comfortable and they started controlling the puck a little bit more. It was just very gritty, wasn't it? It was very gritty. Like before anyone could start sort of building a real bit of momentum, it had just they'd go back together, and there was pushing and shoving and handbags, and it was a true Yorkshire derby, really. But yeah, I think as the game went on, and perhaps obviously after they scored, that's when we started getting more of those opportunities. And I do remember a couple of chances. I think there was a couple of backdoor ones where maybe earlier in the season, if we're not carrying those injuries to certain players, it's a goal and things like that. But yeah, it's just how it was, I think, on the night again. And it's sort of, when the puck's going right through and then a Leeds player stick lifts a Hull player, it's just good defending. Like, they haven't won the league and cups and things like that for the last X amount of years. Coincidentally, Ryan Aldridge is a top class coach, and obviously to set up a team like that, you got to be strong defensively going from the back and build forwards, don't you? So yeah.
I did want to mention about the way the game was, to be honest with you, because there was a bit of aggression, but not on the same sort of scale as the MK sort of series, where MK, you could tell straight off the bat, there was looking to really be aggressive and potentially hurt someone, where Leeds was physical, but sort of doing it in a different way.
Holding their own, rather than being passive or aggressive towards us.
Yeah, but they sort of lent into Bally Picozzi again. So it isn't the first time where, we played Leeds and he's had a bit of a doozy. And again, he sort of turned up, and it was almost as if Bally, you're in there to disrupt, and that's what he did for most of the night. He was getting at Heskey, having a few ding-dongs with some of the players. I know 2, maybe 3 of our players offered the gloves drop with him, and he sort of smirked and was just like, I've no interest in this. I've already got you all wound up, sort of thing. And I think the longer the game went on, when it was that tight, there was sort of like, Bally, try it again, because we need to get these down to 4 skaters or get an opening to get this opening goal. And I don't mind that, to be fair. If that was, Hodge for us, Chambo, non-issue. You've got to do what you got to do to win in big games like that. And if it means just, lifting the temperature a bit under a few people, then you do it, don't you?
We've got exactly that player in Jason Hewitt, haven't we? He's done it to us so many times in the past few seasons, where he's had our players on strings and things. And Bally's one of those players where he's a solid second line player. He's got the output. He's going to score you goals. He's going to get you assists. But yeah, his gamesmanship it's experience. Obviously, being from Hungary, he's well travelled. He's played in Swindon for a lot of years as well. He's played under Aldi before, so he's obviously got good pedigree, hasn't he? But even bits where there's a face-off going on and he's behind Emil Svek and he's sort of lifting his stick and tapping Svek on his, to try and get him off guard just as the puck's about to drop. It's just stuff that I think it's learnt behaviour that obviously will have been really successful for him before. But yeah, really good bit of gamesmanship there. I think it was worth a mention, definitely. And, I think there was a couple of bits, weren't there, where Hodge was saying come on then, let's do it. And he sort of gave a nod over to the fans. He was like, I'm not fighting you near there. Let's have a fight over there. And you can just tell that Bally probably intending to do it. But, it then gets Josh Hodge's head or somebody else's head off being like, right, well, I'm going to go defend now. Rather than, well, let's get over there as soon as we can so we can have that fight. And then, do you know what I mean? It is just good gamesmanship, really. But, yeah, they have a couple of players like that, don't they? I know Brownie's on one that where he's not exactly, let's say, the biggest fan of ex-Leeds players. He'll give Ethan Hare and people like that an extra tap and stuff like that. But I guess, again, it just sends the message kind of being like, you're with us or you're against us. And I think that's the kind of thing where players in your team can get behind it, can't they? And Ollie Endicott, obviously Ollie Endicott, and you know, he was the pantomime villain in the end, wasn't he, in terms of the scoreline and things like that. But he was really busy as well. So I think that's first, second, and third line where they've got someone who can be a bit of a disruptor as well as chipping in the points and stuff like that. So they're a really well spread team. Like, that was one of the main points as well about this weekend, where they was playing three line hockey all weekend, and obviously going into next weekend, they've then lost even more players. But to say they was playing three line hockey, I don't think it seemed that way. Did it? As like, there was a really well put together side.
It was indeed, and like you said, they lined themselves up really nicely and sort of spread the minutes where needed, and you know, it did. You know, I think it was maybe a bit later on where you could see a little fatigue setting in, but I thought we looked a bit fatigued as well on the Saturday, and that's where it just kept locking horns against each other. But I do want to sort of bring it now to the biggest part of the night, which was, you know, the one goal and the only goal of the night, which was scored by Ollie Endicott, 57-41. So we'd gone 57 minutes of a game of the 60 minutes and no goals. And then this one comes in. And if I remember rightly, it was sort of a wraparound attempt, and it sort of got jammed in front of Heskey and then sort of maybe poked home by Endicott. And it would just seem like a really horrible goal to concede. It's not as if it was a big sniping. He was like, you know what, we can't save that. It just seemed like a really horrible sort of ratty goal to concede. But one of those where if that's your team scoring, you take it. And it was massive, you know. Big credit to Leeds that the place absolutely boomed. You know, the roof came off the place and the celebrations came, and we was all left a bit bitter and upset about it, weren't we?
Absolutely, yeah. Like that. That's exactly right what you said. Like, obviously the puck came round, and I know that there was like two of their players just with their sticks in there, weren't they, just jamming, and as soon as it went in, the place lit up. Like, they say that the atmosphere at the Castle was a really good one, and wow, the silent, the noise was deafening, wasn't it? It was ridiculous, and I think we all said amongst ourselves, like, can't see this going to overtime. I can just see one of the teams just nicking it, and I hope it's us. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, it wasn't to be, and arguably, you know, on the night, I said on the way home to Brad, and I stand by what I said. I said if we had gone to overtime and Leeds would have won, then I'd have been happy with that, to be honest. I think they played a really good game. They played really, really well defensively. We did as well, obviously. And obviously, if we go and get the goal the other end, then I'm buzzing. You know, it's a massive result that away from home, isn't it? But yeah, no, I think it was really, really, it was a gut punch, definitely. And I can imagine, obviously, I've seen the videos that Leeds fans have been posting of Matty and how disappointed he was. And, you know, he's a guy that wears his heart on his sleeve. But I think that sort of would have resonated with everybody in the Seahawks room there. I think they'll have been absolutely gutted to lose it that late on. But it wasn't a discredit against the way they defended on the night. I thought they were really, really solid.
You know, you're absolutely bang on. I think anybody who would say that both teams didn't at least deserve a point would be massively unfair. Both teams, for the effort and the show that was put on, deserved a point, and it was just that extra point that needed to be fought for. And to be honest with you, I think I said to you and Brad anyway that I'd have taken a point there, minimum. If we'd have taken a point there, I'd have been over the moon, and then battle it out back at home, where, you know, we are a bit better, a bit more formidable. A lot of teams don't like coming, but it wasn't meant to be, unfortunately.
Unfortunately not. No, we said, didn't we, if you can go and get a point on in every one of your game, you'll be fine. Like, even if it's 1 point away from home, it'd be fantastic. But yeah, went to be. Obviously, put Leeds in a bit of a driver's seat going into the Sunday night, wasn't it? And I think upon entry to the rink, although it was buzzing, I think there was definitely a feel around, wasn't there, where there was a bit of uncertainty going into the Sunday night game.
Yeah, so let's jump into Sunday. So Saturday night, just to summarise there, 1-0 Leeds Knights, 57th minute. Leeds Knights take it in regular time, taking the 2 points, leaving Hull Seahawks empty-handed. And then moving into the Sunday, which was obviously the same teams again, but Hull Seahawks at home. And Hull really needing to win this one to really keep any hopes alive, you know, and potentially needing a favour from the Telford MK, which obviously we'll look at their results a bit later on. So, as you say there was maybe a bit of doubt in fans' minds, maybe not knowing what to expect after seeing what they'd seen on the Saturday. At home, though, we know how good we are. It was just, are we going to get another 50, 55 minutes of no goals again? And would anybody be able to accept that and put up with that emotions once again? But it was a very different game, wasn't it, in terms of goal scoring?
It was absolutely, yeah, and it was needed. I think. I don't think that a lot of Seahawks fans would have been able to cope with another 50-odd minutes of no goals. I think there'd have been a few with that would have been having to go to the St John's ambulance or something like that. But no, I think it started really well. There was a few handbags from the Saturday night that was carried across, few chips and things like that. I know, obviously, like we mentioned him earlier, because he wasn't exactly an angel. I was anticipating that something kicking off with him, to be honest, but it was the opposite way. We did have a bit of a tear up to start it off. I think that was to get both guards going, but it wasn't him. It was the captain, Beecham, and Sam
Griffin.
Griffin. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was
Griffin.
It was Jordan Griffin, wasn't it? Yeah. Which again, I think he isn't Hull fans aren't the biggest fan of him, just because I think Bones got a ban last year for a hit on him, didn't they? And there was a lot of people saying that it weren't worthy and this, that, the other. But yeah, it was interesting. I know, is Griffin one of the A's for the team or something?
I believe
like that?
So. Yeah.
One of the leadership team going up against our captain, and I think it was more. I don't even really think it was, again, a malicious one. I think it was just sort of like, this game needs a little bit of something. Like, let's get it going, and it was a good. To be fair, it was quite a good tilt, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, to be fair. And if anything, I thought Griffin held himself quite well, to be honest with you. A lot of people, when they go up against Chamber, I'm just like, oof, you've had it here, son. You're going to be picking your teeth up. But he didn't. He held himself quite well. I know towards the end, I don't know if he'd taken maybe an hard one, and he sort of like just got his head down, started pushing Bobby towards the boards or trying to scare him over. But, big credit to him, because not a lot of people would go up against Bobby and hold their own without, losing a few teeth or losing a bit of blood. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And
great start to the game.
Yeah, and fair play to Bob as well. We all know that he's a bit banged up at the minute, but he's still putting himself on the line, like, for the team. And Matty's mentioned before about about other players stepping up and not having to get Bobby to have to do that. But he's still doing it, and he's still sort of wanting to lead the way for the lads. And it wasn't even like after the tilt, it wasn't like an arrogant. You get these players that's a bit like this. He was just sort of like like to the fans, in which it definitely got the place going, didn't it? And I think, to be fair, like you said about Griffin, I think it also got the Leeds fans up for it as well, because, Griffin did stand up for himself a little bit there. Obviously, towards the end, he pushed him, like you said, but, he still stood up for it and still wanted to go for it. And I think after that, that's where the game really kicked into gear, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And going back to how the game was played, it was different in some respect to the Saturday night. The one thing I wanted to mention here is I thought the officiating on the Sunday at times was absolutely abysmal. They wanted to call anything and everything and would not let this game play out as if it was a playoff game. Anything sort of physical and a bit of the handbags, you're going to get it. It's a Yorkshire derby. It's playoffs. And like I mentioned not long back, we was pretty much fighting for our lives in this game. If we didn't get a win on this night, we was all but done, in my opinion. So the way the officiating was just like, oh no, we'll blow this up, off you go. And I was just like, let this play. Come on.
Everything. In the first 10 minutes, for context, there was 8 penalties. So like every time those are coming together, there was people in the box. There was in 2, so it's 4 different occasions. So the Svek and Sobchak that went in, Coops and Hewitt that went in, Svek and Dylan Hare got one for tripping. It was just like, there was just some ridiculous ones. I think, do you remember the Dylan Hare one where he's like hip checked him?
It went to hip check him, yeah.
The player got by, and then like Alex Kent and him fell over each other. Alex Kent gave him a Mark Henry big splash. Then Dylan Hare got a penalty against him for tripping. It was like, it makes no sense. Like, got, if it was Alex Kent like roughing or holding or something, you'd have been like eye roll, but you kind of get it. Like, it was just like Dylan Hare was a bit like, me, what are you talking about? But yeah,
his hip checks and knocked his man over. I mean,
yeah, it was just one of those, wasn't it, where there was just no, like, usually it's great when referees sort of, obviously you've got to step in, haven't you? But when you let the players sort of referee it themselves and sort of, keep each other at bay. I get when players are punching each other's heads in, obviously, like, you've got to step in there. But there was just some really soft calls, and it was tough because, like you say, when both teams both teams are still fighting for it there. And both teams probably want to get a bit of momentum going. And it just didn't seem that way, did it? Because every minute or every other minute, the game was stopped for a minute, like getting players in the box, splitting players up and stuff. And I get it's a Yorkshire derby as well, but must have been hard for the players, like when the referees are blowing for everything,
But I'd appreciated it if like something had happened and there was a big ruckus and something kicked off and the refs were like, now we need to calm it down. But there was nothing in the game. Like that's sort of when that's the moment that then the officials thought they needed to do something. It was just sort of off the bat. The officials were just like, no, we're just knocking all this on the head. And it's just like, we're playing hockey here. Grow up. We're here to enjoy this. It's going to be hard hitting and fast paced. But it wasn't even just the officials. How many times did everybody get upset with the fact that the linesman dropping the puck on a restart on a face-off? And it took forever to restart the game.
Literally. To the point where the players was then standing back up, skating and doing a turn and getting themselves ready because they've been crouched down for that long. The legs are probably starting to ache. It's just like, come on, like, it's not about you guys. Let's just get on with it.
Honestly, it was just killing the rhythm of the game, to be honest with you. If Leeds and Hull go at each other, not necessarily aggressive, but if the game's just played at a decent pace, it can be some game of hockey. And the officials are sort of like, let's just bring this to a snail pace and let it just play out.
No, exactly. And like you say, there's a couple of teams that come when they come to Hull. It's always like you look forward to MK being one, obviously, Sheffield. But I'd argue that in terms of an actual proper ice hockey match, Hull Leeds is probably one of the best in the league. Like even for a neutral fight, it's a great. I watch every game. Good hockey being played, hard hockey being played. You might get a few fisticuffs, but always a great game. And just the refereeing at times just didn't allow that to be the case, did it? Which was a bit frustrating. And I think because of that, we couldn't go into the game. And not to say that they didn't deserve it, but it came to Leeds' like benefit, didn't it? Because shortly after that, Leeds, I think it was it about 11 minutes in
11 and a half minutes,
11 minutes in, Liam Payton got Leeds on the score sheet kind of thing, and it was a bit like, that it was after that point, it was kind of like, oh no, let's not have the same as last night. That kind. Well, not the same as last night. 'Cause Hull defended really well, but you didn't want then Hull to be wound up with all the referees and stuff, and let that sort of affect them negatively. So it was an interesting one.
Yeah, like you say, 11 and a half minutes, Liam Payton opens the score, and that was the only goal of the period as well. So, again, it was hard for end-to-end, both teams defending very well, but that one marker there, setting Leeds up real nicely, and I'm sure they'd been over the moon on the road, as you said, thinking about next weekend as well, where they're going to be extra players down, but the lead at the Hull Ice Arena, and then we had to sort of rethink our strategy and how we was going to play it going into the second period. And it kicked up again, didn't it, really? It was, a bit more emotion, but we did get some goals. So it was about 28 minutes. Lee Bonner, great goal as well. Odd man rush.
Yeah, it was a really good one. And it was massively needed. It definitely swung things in our favour.
Yeah, I just remember it, and of all people, obviously before the game, Lee Bonner being told, player of the month as well, massively deserved. So big well done to him, and he's carried it on into the playoffs. And I just remember he sort of got round his man, and he was sort of one-on-one with Gosling. He was like, right, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? He sort of gave him the side to side, and then just went 5-0 on him and put it in the back of the net. And like you say, as much as there was an atmosphere at Leeds the night before, when we finally got on the scoreboard, did the place go up, and it was unbelievable. Absolutely fantastic.
Erupted. And again, like you said, that was 28 minutes in that. So, the longer it went on, it was kind of like, we're not going to have a one-goal game again, are we? So for us to even that up, it then pushes both teams on, doesn't it? Which then you get a real game, which was brilliant. And, much needed. I think you could see the reaction from the bench, the whole bench have had the relief, and everyone was so, like, animated, and it was like, yes, here we go. This is... Because I feel like once we get that goal at home, we just go up that extra gear and that extra level, don't we? And again, I think from there we didn't really turn backwards, throughout the game. I was really impressed, actually. So that was great to get sort of a hold on, but it didn't last long.
It didn't, no, but I do just want to say that I was glad that we finally scored, because I know between the three of us, we had started saying like, oh, it's been 80 minutes since we've scored. It's been 90 minutes since we've scored now. You know, we've mentioned how up to this point in three games of playoffs, we'd only scored 4 goals. So
Yeah.
it was a bit worrying. You know, we was one of the lesser scorers in the playoffs at the moment, which was quite a bit of a shock to us, really, because we can score goals and we can score for fun at times. So getting this goal was massive for both Lee himself and to get the team going and thinking, right, we can score goals, let's get at it. But with that said, it didn't take long because Kieran Brown sat in the penalty box. Somebody might have been chirping him, sat in, you know, a row in front of me. Says, as Kieran Brown turned up, he comes straight out the penalty box. And I think there was a bit of a mishap in our defence and passed it straight to him. And he went one-on-one with Heskey. And he did the same as Bonner and sort of went fireball. And Leeds took the lead through a really careless bit of play. And that was a gutter, really. As tight as the game was, you couldn't afford to do mistakes like that.
No, definitely not. Especially when you've got Kieran Brown coming out of the box. Like, literally, you needed to get that touch right, didn't he? And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And the power that Brownie can skate with, like, if he slips you know, if you don't get your stick in there to trip him up or something like that, then you might as well just not give up on it, obviously.
You're a spectator, aren't you?
You are a spectator. He's bounding down on you. And again, as good as Heskey is, you know, Kieran Brown, there's obviously top quality there. And I think he will have been the main sort of player that they'll have had their eyes on to try and keep quiet. And yeah, don't know who it was around us who shouted that. I think they called him Kieran Beige as well, which wasn't very nice. But yeah, when's Kieran Brown turning up and 20 seconds later, yeah, the Leeds was 2-1 up, which wasn't the greatest, but we won't put it down to that. We'll put it down to the mishap in defence.
But fortunately, it didn't take long again in sort of 2 minutes, and we sort of responded really nicely. And I remember this was the one where I was mid-screaming something of, I can't remember what it was, I don't know if the game was stopping or the refs, and I just went, can you shut up, we're fighting for our, and I just went, lives, and then Jason Hewitt, blue liner, rips one, back pocket, thanks for coming, 2-2.
Yeah, it was class. Huey back on the forward lines as well for the first sort of 2 periods of the game, wasn't he? I think towards the later stages of Saturday night, so obviously Huey's been playing D, for those who don't know. He started on D, I think, then went to forward, then started forward on like the second or first line for the Sunday night. And then later on, obviously, went back into D, didn't he? But yeah, no, really good. It was nice to see Huey back on forwards. Obviously, he's doing really well defensively. But I think when, you know, it's not clicking and things like that, and you do need to move people up and down, why not? And obviously, Huey came up with a big goal. He does seem to do that a lot, doesn't he? As he's not the kind of player where, you know, he just sits and coasts by. He's always contributing in one way or the other, and he's just reliable, like really good. And I know that probably one that the Leeds fans won't have been massively happy with, considering he had a bit of a run-in with Brownie on Saturday night, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, yeah. But yeah, great to see Huey coming in there, clutch. That got us back to 2-2. And then just when we thought we could settle ourselves down again, Leeds come straight back. I think it was like another minute and a half on top of that one. And it was Griffin, who obviously had the fight early in the night, comes up with a goal. Leeds take the lead 3-2 going into the end of the period, and a real gutter going into that last period, wasn't it?
Good goal, if I remember, as well. Like a decent finish. It weren't like a scrappy tapping or anything like that, was it? I think he did sort of rip it a little bit, but yeah, it was hard, wasn't it? I think every time we sort of got our foot in the door, they tried slamming it in our face again, didn't they? Which was hard. Yeah. And I think going into this period didn't calm down in terms of like the handbags and stuff like that, but there was a lot less penalties. So to be fair to the refs, I think they sort of did let it, you know, referee itself a little bit. I know that in this period, Bobby had like 3 or 4 times off the puck where someone just like smashed into him and floored him. And I think, if I remember rightly, as after this goal, there was a couple where, like, you know, the players had come together. And I remember Bobby's reaction going off the ice. I think he got his helmet and like threw it at the boards.
Yeah.
I think right at the end, someone had like smashed into him, and the referees just didn't give anything. I think at one point he colourfully said, he'd been hit on the floor, got up, skated to one of the lines and said, "Open your beeping eyes, ref," or something like that, because it was so obvious and he was just not getting anything. And like right on the end, I think he got knocked over. He got up, got his helmet, slung it at the side, and I was thinking, oh no, we really need Bob tonight. Like, we can't have him like getting more and more frustrated. But I understood the frustration as well. And I think going into that third period, there was a bit of worry on my part where I was thinking, I don't want this to get silly, and we've seen this before. But actually, the reaction from the Seahawks was for me was fantastic. I thought, you know, whatever was said during that second intermission, they came out and, you know, they came out like an absolute house on fire, didn't they? And it was a really, really good reaction, considering, you know, they could have come out and played nasty hockey and just gone out to sort of get their own back sort of thing. But I think they've learnt a little bit. I think we can all admit that we probably were that team at parts last season. But I definitely don't think that's the case now. I think, you know, they do it in the right way now, where they're still defensively solid. They know what the plan is, but, you know, when the opportunity arises, then obviously they can sort of do that. But yeah, I was very worried about Bob. I thought, you know, with him being hurt as well, I thought, you know, you need to look after those players. And I think obviously the likes of Hodge and people like that we're still like trying to sort of do that and look after players. But yeah, I was very worried, but the reaction when we came out for the third was brilliant.
Yeah, I would love to have been a fly on the wall in that dressing room in that second intermission. Like you say, I think Bobby was massively in his right to start kicking off, because there was 3 that I counted and saw, you know, in the full where it got levered off the puck. He wasn't even there. And I remember just screaming like interference on every single one, because there was nothing. It was going towards where the puck was going, and somebody just sort of like give him one and just send him to the ice. And he's like, what's going on here? I remember the last one just before the end of the period. The referee was just literally just looking straight at, like, it was in the goal mouth, wasn't it? It was just behind Gozzy in the goal, and he got one. I can't remember who did it to him, and the ref's just looking. He just like, are you going to do anything about this or what? Like you said, seeing him kick up and throw his helmet, he was just like, oh no, this is not good. But I think the break hit the right time to get him back in the change room and just be like, Bobby, we know we've seen it. They aren't giving out. Just calm it, because we need you to get through it.
Yeah. And it was a real like captain-led performance in that second half. You know, I was so happy with the way they came out, and they did a real sort of, I want to say, like, professional job in the third period, really. I think it was like really tight. They didn't really give Leeds loads and loads. If Leeds ever did get an opportunity, it was sort of, you know, shut down and things like that. All the while, by the way, we're going at Gozzy as well, and he's still stupidly doing well and things like that. But yeah, no, I was impressed with Seahawks third period, if I'm honest with you.
The third period was really good, and I'm glad you brought up Gozzy, because I wanted to bring up that save earlier in the game.
Unbelievable.
I'd love to see a replay of it again. I know the game stopped in it because there was big questions whether it had actually gone in or whatever. And when I saw it myself, I was like, that never went in. So for a bit of context here, like, there was a bit of a scramble in front of the goal, and Gozzy was on his front, laying on the front of, like, on his front on the ice, and it had gone over him. And you're just like, they've chipped him, it's in. And he somehow manages to just lift his foot off the ice behind him and sort of kicks it with his heel away from the goal. Yeah, and you just like, how was that even humanly possible? How have you done that?
Where you're audibly screaming, being like, no, how is he? Yeah. Oh,
he's literally, he's on the floor. He's nowhere to be seen. It's an open goal. You just see, it might have been Svek who just sort of lifted the puck over him. He was just sort of like ready to just give it some. And he just goes, nah, you're all right. And just kills it away. And you're just like, this is why the guy's as good as he is.
It must have been the blade of his skate, literally, like,
it must have been.
Flicked it off. It was unbelievable. I know, to be fair as well, to Seahawks credit, there was a couple where, like, I know, like, Sobchak kicked one off the line as well, like, where Gozzy's then made that save and it's bounced out and it's gone in, and then Sobs has cleared one off the line. Pantomime Villain is, you know, he was ours, obviously, for a long time. We all loved him a lot, but yeah, no, it was good for the Seahawks. That I think we definitely needed that approach. Didn't we? We couldn't be cautious in that last period. Obviously, we were being a goal behind, and they really went for it, didn't we? And I think, you know, that goal that Moose scored, yeah, it really got us set up for a real good third period.
Yeah, my biggest concern going into that third period was if and when we would score, and how long would it be, because the desperation would have started to set in if we'd have gone, you know, deep into that third period and still not scored. You'd have been thinking, right, how much further do we go before we start thinking of a different sort of, setup? Because we'd noticed as well that the lines sort of changed up, didn't they, later in the game, and our players started to move around, which I think benefited us a lot, to be honest. But yeah, just coming out the blocks. I think it was only about 1:50 when Moose scored. And it was a really nice work goal where, I think it was it Hayward had come sort of round, or was it Speck sort of came round towards us, and it was just a slammed pass right across the face of goal. And Moose back door just sniped it, bang straight behind Gozzy, and to get us 3-3, only a minute and a half into that period would have been relief to a lot of people and a lot of the lads themselves, just thinking, right, we're back now, reset, go again. It's 0-0, and we go for the next 18 minutes. And
100%.
God, it was a hard fought third period, and you just started adding those flashbacks to the night before, and you thought, right, we're going deep now. Last 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. Is somebody going to score? If they score now, it's probably going to be the game winner. And it never came. We played the 60 minutes, and overtime came round, and that's where the nerves really started to set in for us, didn't it, going into that? And we was all, who's going to be who's do you line up here? Who do you go against? And
it was total nerves. I think 2 points was a must in terms of the game, and arguably we'd have said that you never want to give a point away in that fashion, do you? But if we'd have took anything out of the game, the minimum we would have required for both games for me would have been 1 point. So that was a saving grace in itself. But I feel like at home, when it goes to overtime, I don't think we've been beat many times, if at all, in overtime at home this season. Like we're a bit of a different beast when it comes to overtime, and the threes that you can send out there are fantastic. But it went 3 for the full period, was it? Because again, it was a bit of a pantomime villain.
So going into overtime, from my perspective, I was a bit confident because I remember saying before the end of the game, but Leeds started to look leggy. I think that did transpire as well in overtime. I think we won the first face-off and we sort of controlled it, and we was very controlled. We started to go forward, and if it didn't work, let's go back. And the few times Leeds got it, they were sort of trying to get forward, but they just didn't seem to have that same intensity and energy they had earlier in the game. But then their main man, Kieran Brown, he came out for a shift on the overtime, and I think it was Bonner sort of got near our bench, and the puck sort of got stuck as well in sort of like the dredges of ice and snow in the doorway. And Brownie came up with a bit of a high stick, and we all screamed, I think more in hope that something would be given, and it was. So Kieran Brown getting the 2-minute penalty. And I think when it all was said and done, there was only 2 minutes 3 left of the game. So it was literally the rest of overtime was under our power play. And for Kieran Brown to give that away was detrimental to them, wasn't it? Like you say, you could see there was leggy, and that gave us a massive boost going 4-on-3 in overtime.
Especially, overtime. When it's 3-on-3, the pad just seems to times by 5, doesn't it? But when you've got that extra skater as well, like it was like the Sharks were circling. As soon as Kieran was in the box, it was very like, now is the time. If it's now or never. And obviously, it didn't take that long, actually. I think, was it about 30 seconds after?
Yeah, it didn't take long at all.
Obviously, it came good. And the man who Matty said he wanted to kill after the first period in his interview came up good in the end. So, I'm sure they'll have shared a laugh or a beer after the game.
Yeah, big Emmy Smith coming in clutch. He has been the main man in terms of points and stuff this season in the regular season for the Seahawks. But you could just see, I think it was Cornel and Stallard that got the assist. It was very similar to like the Moose goal, wasn't it? It sort of they built up, and you could just see Smith coming in, but the Leeds man just couldn't really even do anything to stop him. Emmy was just head down. He was like, I need to get to that back door, and the pass came across, and he just wham, as Emmy does, and fired it. And the place just went absolutely off. It was unbelievable. To finally secure that win and get 2 points was everything for us. And it was, the emotion just poured out in it from everybody. It was unreal.
Everybody was on the ice. It was great to see the boys finally get what they deserved for the weekend, because they deserved 2 points at some point. But a big credit to Hull, because they were fantastic over the weekend, in my opinion. Big credit to Leeds as well, for the same thing there. it was a real good derby. I think probably I'd say my favourite weekend of the season watching hockey. I know it's playoffs, so it's got that extra sort of meaning behind it. But I just think it was two really good, solid hockey games. Two really good defensive sides, which I know you probably want to go to a game and watch a 7-5 because of all the goals. But I think with the a smaller amount of goals and the defensive quality of both the netminders and the defensive cause, it just made it for me. Like really, really impressed with both teams. I think Leeds will be a bit gutted to not get that extra point because they've got a big ass next week going into MK. And obviously, we'll go into the next set of results anyway in terms of Telford and what they can do and what we've got sort of coming ahead of us. But yeah, no, I saw Aldi after the game, not speaking to him or anything like that, but as you walk near their benches or whatever, and he looked not upset, but he looked gutted, didn't he?
Yeah. I was going to bring this up before we sort of summarised the two games, but I think that was the big thing because Aldi was getting chirped a bit, one in the first couple of period, like breaks by the Seahawks fans, and he was joining back and having a bit of a laugh. But yeah, you could see it on his face. There was a lot going through his head after that game. He has a lot to contemplate. Like you say, he's going to be missing a whole line again next weekend. It could be down to 2 lines or filling in massively with Leeds 2 potentially. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But you can see, and we did see a couple of lads, and they was gutted. If they could have taken the 2 points, I think they'd have been over the moon and felt a hell of a lot safer about their position in the playoffs, where obviously we'll look into it soon, but they're still not safe yet, Leeds, and they're going to need to pull off an absolute worldie against MK, who, just they seem a really good side in playoffs at the minute. And yeah, I obviously they're going to be confident, Leeds, but I don't know how confident you can be knowing that you're going to be heavily underhanded, and playing them twice. It's a tough ask, but it was definitely something worth mentioning there. Just at the end is how much older you could see it on his face, and like you say, he was quiet and he just sort of disappeared and just says like, I'm going sort of thing. You could see he was like, he's not happy, but there's a lot going on there.
You almost wondered, don't you, because he was like sat outside the change room on the benches just with his head down sort of thing. And I don't know whether he was just giving the boys time to themselves or, they're getting a silent treatment or whatever. He probably knows that they're in quite a hard situation, so I doubt he was giving them it loads. But, in that kind of situation, you can be over emotive, can't you? And you can start, waving the wand around and pointing the fingers and stuff like that. But to be fair, over both games, both teams played really, really well. And it's hard to sort of, point the finger in that sense. You can't be saying, Brownie shouldn't have got a blah blah in overtime, because if it goes the other way, you know what I mean, you're singing and dancing at you, so it's just hard. But yeah, I think for Leeds, if you're a Leeds fan and you're thinking that you deserve 4 points this weekend, then I think that you need to look at the bigger picture really, because I think that it was a fair result for both sides. I do think we were worth 2 points this week at I don't know what I'm just going to... I think it was worth 2 points definitely over the course of the year, is what I'm trying to say. Leeds probably did deserve 3 points. I think we deserve 3 points as well. But yeah, I think the points seemed fair by the end of the weekend, barring maybe one for us on Saturday.
Yeah, I completely agree. It was good we didn't get the extra point, and would have been 3 points apiece, which I think overall over the weekend would have been justified, and we'd have all been happy with that. But overall, a big turnaround on the Sunday at home. We knew we had to win. We had to get a win. Even just the point on the Sunday wouldn't have been enough for us. We had to get the 2 points, especially missing out on the Saturday. So I'm confident now. Telford at Mugs, and that's where we go next for a double header. It could still go either way, and we'll look into that. But I'm happy with how we've done this weekend. To be honest with you, I can't have asked for much more. The point on the Saturday would have been nice for overtime, but it wasn't meant to be. But we recovered well and got the win, and that's the main thing.
Absolutely, mate. Definitely.
Let's move on then and have a look at what the rest of the league did. So now we're going to have a look at what happened in the rest of the groups and the fixtures that happened, starting with Friday the 3rd of April, and that was Sheffield Steel Dogs hosting the Swindon Wildcats. So Swindon travelling there. They've had a good start to their playoffs as well as Sheffield. We was a bit and ahhing on how this one would turn out. Sheffield favouring those Friday games, and it seems to be working for them quite well. Sheffield taking this one 5-4 in a shootout.
Yeah. So I was keeping tabs on this game, and I think Swindon went up 1-0. Then it was like 1-1, 2-1 Sheffield. 2-1 Swindon, then 2-2. But then Swindon sort of went up a gear, and I think they got it to 4-2 at one point. So to be fair to Sheffield, for them to come get it back to sort of 4-4 and then go to overtime and then take it to the shootout as well is a real testament to them. I know that it was 4-2 at the end of the second period, I believe. So, at that point, you're thinking, we're looking all right here, lads. Let's just make sure we have that professional performance. And arguably, Swindon haven't been accustomed to that sort of, I feel like when they get that little gap, they've not really been the team to sort of let that go. I think that was more last year, wasn't it? So I don't know whether that speaks to Sheffield and just their sort of character and how well they've done, or I don't want to say warning signs for Swindon, because obviously, going to Sheffield and getting any sort of point isn't a bad result, is it? So I think, I think it more speaks to Sheffield and how they've sort of done. I know that the main man himself got 3 assists during regulation. Walker Sommer was back amongst the goals as well, which was nice to see. He got their second and third goal. But yeah, the man, the myth, the legend, the man who appeared in all of our team of the seasons was the one who won it for him in the shootout, Mr. Genji.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the scoreline, it doesn't surprise me in some respect that it was as close as it was, and we'll talk about, the reverse fixture, because that was also a close score as well. But I think it was quite favourable for the home team to take this one overall. I know Swindon are champions, what they've done, but I think Sheffield have shown that they are a bit more stable and a bit more solid, and like you said, they're not willing to give away games as much as they have done earlier in the season, and especially last season. So I think this one was a feeler for potentially who might face each other at Coventry. It could be they face each other in the final, depending on how it goes. So, looking at the 2 games I've had over the weekend, if it happened to be the final, it'd be some ding-dong, wouldn't it? And real eye-opener.
And arguably, it'd be probably like, if you had to choose 2 teams that have probably been those 2 teams for the duration of the season, it probably would be them 2, wouldn't it? So, if it weren't Seahawks, I'd love to see them 2 go at it again, personally.
Yeah, league winner, cup winner.
Yeah.
That's what you want in it, really.
Yeah.
So that was Friday, and then we moved into Saturday's fixtures. So the first game on the Saturday, the Romford Raiders hosted the Peterborough Phantoms, and the Phantoms took this one 6-5. So
this one, if you're a Romford fan, this is going to be hard listening this, because after 10 minutes, Romford were 4-0 up. Jake Sylvester got a hat-trick in 7 minutes, and Ewan Hill got the 4th. 10 minutes in, you're 4-0 up. What are you doing if you're a Peterborough fan? At what point are you calling time out there? Because, in the opening weekend, did Peterborough get, how many points did they get? Did they get none or 2, was it, or something like that, maybe?
They didn't have many, did they?
Who did they have last week? And they had Peterborough last weekend, didn't they? I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but did they get beat in regulation in both games? Because we basically said, didn't we, they need to win every game now. Otherwise,
Sheffield beat Peterborough in both games, so they had nothing.
Yeah, so they had nothing going into this. So if you're 4-0 down after 10 minutes, despite having looked for Aaron, Yanni and Camu have all got 100 points and set these amazing records, you're looking at you and you're thinking, we're in deep, deep water here. So actually, the sort of comeback that they mounted was really good. They got 2 goals back to make it 4-2, but then Romford got their 5th. And again, like most teams fall away there, don't they? And think, well, they're back at us now, so we're gonna have to suck this up. But I don't know whether it's a massive credit to Peterborough for the big comeback, or a big drop of the ball from Romford. I do like Romford, and we speak to some Romford fans a lot, and I've got a lot of time for them. But I can't help but thinking it's more Romford who majorly dropped the ball here rather than Peterborough.
It's hard because in a playoff game, why are Peterborough going 4-0 down?
I know.
That is not good at all. You should not get yourself in position at all. But I see the other side, when you're 4-0 up, it's a bit of game management. I mean, maybe it came too early. If that had been later in the game, would it have suited them? 10 minutes, then you got 50 minutes with a 4-goal lead. Your game changes. You maybe, you take the foot off the gas a bit. Oh, we're 4-0 up here.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it came too soon, the gap. I don't know.
I think the thing with Romford as well is they've got a very young squad, haven't they? I don't think they've got too many players who are like older and they've got the experience of like big games and things like that. And I don't know maybe whether it sort of shone through that where, the young ones are sort of like, we're going to, we're going to walk it. This is going to be easy. And maybe they've just sort of let that sort of complacency creep into the game a little bit, which is a shame. But at the end of the day, Peterborough have come through with a big win. And obviously, Romford have got to look at themselves in the mirror after that game and sort of, right or wrong on the Sunday, which obviously we'll talk about shortly, won't we? But yeah, a big drop of the ball from Romford and a big comeback from Peterborough to keep their Coventry hopes very, very, very thinly alive for the Saturday.
I was going to say, we obviously seen the Friday result that Steel Dogs and Swindon both picked up points. It wasn't a good look for Peterborough. It was already, it was weird how this group, after one weekend, Peterborough was already nearly packing the bags and, that was them done for playoffs. But it was do or die for them this weekend. Looking at Romford, no disrespect, but they was the weakest team in the group. It couldn't be anything but 4 points for Peterborough this week if they wanted to stay alive in this group. And skin of the teeth on the Saturday, they've managed to get through, and then obviously we'll talk about what happened on the Sunday in a minute. But
absolute skin on the skin of the teeth.
I can tell you what, when that final whistle went, I bet the Peterborough fans was just like, "Oof, we've got out of dodge here," and it must have been an absolute worldie to have just got out there, smash and grab and get out.
One of our friends from the pod who messages every week, I love it. He's called Mark. A big shout out to Mark. He always gives us like a bit of a match report, for the Raiders stuff. And I felt so sorry for him. He was like, I've never seen my son cry like that before because he's a massive Raiders fan, obviously. He was like, I felt so sorry for him. And can you imagine, like, a young lad, like the elation that you felt at 4-0 up or 5-2, and then Peter's come back. But yeah, that's sport for you, and that'll teach that young lad a lesson, sort of, about what sport can do to you. But yeah, I did feel sorry for him. But yeah, I think he touched as well. He just said, like, they had such a good start to the game, it fell off a little bit. So big shame for them. But again, we'll go into the Sunday very shortly.
Yep. So the second game on the Saturday, which we've already covered, and it was Leeds Knights hosting the Hull Seahawks, and Leeds Knights taking that one 1-0. The third game, Swindon Wildcats hosting the Sheffield Steel Dogs, and Swindon getting a bit of retribution for the night before, taking this one 3-2, and this was in regulation, so no overtime or anything to play in this one. So big credit. We've said about the link before and what Swindon like at the link, but we've still pushed, quite hard towards the end there and just taking it by that one goal. So massive for them.
Not going to lie, if I was Swindon and I looked at this weekend and somebody had offered me 3 points, I'd have took it, if I'm honest. Sheffield's a hard place to go, and they're notorious for being one of the best defensive teams in the league, aren't they? So I think they'll have been confident about their own ability of getting it done at the link. And yeah, they didn't make it. Sheffield obviously didn't make it easy. Swindon again went up really early. Eddie Bedbris, who we've spoke about a couple of times, haven't we? Yeah. I imagine he's still playing defence. He got a goal 3 minutes in. Sheffield came right back at it. Just I think it was 4:59. With Liam Steele coming back. So again, that little message of you're not going to run away with this. We're not going to let you do that. And then it was a long while. I think it was well into the second period. Caden Viegas got a power play goal with Logan van der Meraka and Watkins on the assists. Those set of imports that they've had have been really good. Viegas was an absolute pickup during the season, like a really good one on the power play. Like I said, that was 36 minutes and then 38 straight away. Dylan Lipsey, I think, who's on their third or fourth line, I want to say. So again, showing that depth. He's picked up the third goal, and then 47 minutes into the third period, Sheffield brought one back. But Swindon doing what Swindon can do at the link and locking it down, not allowing the other team to sort of get back into it. And again, a good result for Swindon, which obviously We won't mention that yet because at this point in time, it wasn't confirmed. It was the then Sunday games that confirmed everything. So, big result for Swindon. This put them on, I want to say, 7 points. Is that right? Yeah, 7 points. Yeah. And Sheffield will have been on 6. So, obviously, this is their double header done. Swindon was, at this point, sitting top. Sheffield was sitting second on 6.
And then the final game of the Saturday, one that sort of had impact on us, and it was Milton Keynes Lightning hosting the Telford Tigers, and the MK eventually got this one over the line and took this one 6-3, but I know for a long time this was quite close, wasn't it? So
yeah.
Bit of a scare for MK, but they'd seen it through at home and got a nice win for themselves.
They did, yeah. It was disappointing for Telford, I imagine, because they went 2-0 up, didn't they? We was on the stands, weren't we? And we're not going to lie, we was there at Leeds, flicking, refreshing, because we just needed to keep eyes on this. And yeah, 2-0 up, to go 2-0 up and finish the first period 2-0 as well. So I don't know whether Lewis Christie's had a stern word of them at the first break, but they came out like an absolute house on fire. I think 3 goals within 7 minutes of the second period started to put them 3-2. And then when you're against an MK side that's got that sort of momentum at MK, they're a really, really hard team to play, aren't they? And again, the game's just sort of then, carried on, and they've sort of ran away with the game, really. Mac Howlett with a couple of goals. Tom Rutkiss, who got man of the match on the night with a couple of goals. Forsberg, who has obviously been a pantomime villain at times, he got a power play goal, which I imagine was probably another ripper like he got against us last week, showing how important he is. And then it was all sort of topped off by Sean Norris in the last couple of minutes. So good result for MK, I'd say. One that I think they'll have definitely had circled on their calendar in terms of this little playoff series, about one that would be a must-win.
Yeah. So that finished up Saturday's fixtures. Sunday came around, and the first fixture on the Sunday was Hull Seahawks hosting the Leeds Knights, which was covered. Seahawks taking that one 4-3 in overtime. Peterborough Phantoms hosting the Romford Raiders. The Raiders taking this one 5-3. So lessons learned from Saturday and getting the job done here, and all but sealing the end of Peterborough's, playoff run.
Absolutely did, yeah. So I believe Peterborough are now out of contention of making it to Coventry, and because of this result, that meant that Swindon would automatically qualify for playoffs. Obviously, they posted that on their social media. So yeah, big result for Group A, top and bottom. First of all, I think a massive credit to Swindon, who've just gone out there and got it done in 2 weeks now. They're in control of how they sort of approach next week. I can't imagine they're going to take the foot off the gas, because you can't really do that a week out from Coventry. But it does allow them to give a bit of, extra time to the lower lines to sort of keep legs fresh and things like that. Yeah, whereas Peterborough, I think, again, we touched earlier in the pod about, or in the intro maybe, about our predictions for Peterborough. I think I was to and fro between Sheffield and Peterborough, but we was all sort of nailed on that Peterborough would be well in the race. And yeah, it's been very underwhelming for a man.
It's a tough one, really. Maybe it's a bit harsh to say underwhelming, because you look at our group, and if you'd have lost 2 games in your first weekend, you're still sort of in it. But that group, it's just, that first week. Imagine after the first weekend, and we said after that first weekend when Peterborough lost both games, they're done. And that is a wild, sort of position to be in, where you literally couldn't lose a game. You're off the bat in that group. You needed to share the points, which is what happened in our group. So, a tough one to take, that one. I'm glad we evaded them, because they've been the thorn in our side for the past 2, playoff series. So, yeah, glad we evaded those and didn't have to deal with that. But big credit to Romford as well. Lessons learned. 4-0 the night before and throwing it away. That young lad, I hope he travelled, because he'd have seen his team win on the Sunday. And nice.
He said he was like, I was absolutely buzzing. He was like, I've never hugged my son for longer. I was like, brilliant. But they travelled both games. I think a lot of fans are doing that at the moment, with it being playoffs and so important. But yeah, great memories, I'm sure, for them too. But yeah, this also kept Romford in the running as well. It's going to be a big ask. They've got to go to Sheffield, I believe, and beat them in both games to make it to Cov. But that's fairy tales are there to be written, aren't they? And if you can go to Sheffield and beat them in regulation, and then beat them at your sort of home rink, then you deserve to be in Coventry, in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. You just got to take it game at a time, see how the first game goes. I mean, if they was to win that first game, in regulation, imagine that the scenes on the Sunday, there'll be some serious tension there. Be one to keep an eye on, and the best of luck for him. I hope it does go to the last game. That's what people want. That's what the playoffs are about. You want it to go right till the wire, as it were. So, fingers crossed for Romford. Again, big credit because it sounds bad, but we put them and Telford as sort of like the worst seeded teams and there. But we said they aren't mugs, and they've played the bat massively, and that's what you want. You just don't want somebody in there to fill up the groups.
No.
You want every team to be at least competitive and disrupt, and that's what they've done. So, well done to them.
Absolutely, yeah. You couldn't have said it better. Big, obviously, look to Romford in that one, because it would be great to see it go to the final day. I know that we've got a couple of Sheffield lads who watch the pod, so I do apologise about that, lads. But, it's all for the neutrals, right?
Yeah, that's it. You've won enough. You've got a cup.
Yeah, not being greedy.
And then the final game, and one that I was, giving it all sorts. I wanted hopes and prayers on this one, and it did come through. Telford Tigers hosting the Milton Keynes Lightning, and the Telford Tigers taking it 4-2, meaning that our group stays so close again. I think it's top to bottom, is it like 2 points or something like that, which is ridiculous, and I'm glad Telford have done their bit as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think if MK had have won this, then it'd have been a big ask going into next weekend for us. But yeah, massive result for Telford. One that almost makes me a little bit worried about next week, because they've now beat Leeds and MK at home. And we've all said, haven't we, win your home games and get a win away, and you're there. With how close everything is in our league, though, 6 points madly might get you to Coventry, which is ridiculous considering Telford, MK, and us are all on 4 points now. And obviously Leeds are on 6. Leeds have lost pretty much a line, so they might be playing 2-line hockey, which is crazy. Going to be nuts. But more on this game. Obviously, we've spoke about every other game. Really quick start for Telford. 5 minutes in, Patrick Brown scored. MK came back with Yanni Jokinen on a power play goal. MK took the lead 2-1, 13 minutes in through Harry Gulliver. But almost instantaneously, David Thompson brought it back to 2-2. There wasn't another goal scored until the third period. So, again, a 2-2. I can imagine it was pretty similar to one of ours, where just going for so long, no goals. I know there was quite a lot of fisticuffs in this one. Rumour has it, Azza, and our friend Mrs. Natty T on Instagram told us that Mr. Spadafor got handsy with Fugalis and found out. Which
I'd still love to hear about it.
Which we never want to see, obviously, but if anyone's got the video, we would really like to see it. Fudge is definitely not somebody that I'd be wanting to mess about with. I know he can look after himself.
Yeah.
So I can imagine Spadafor's been up to his usual tricks and tried pushing Baines around or something, and he's just found out, really. But yeah, no more. Like I said, more to Telford. Big result. So they got a goal in the 46th, then wrapped it up at the end in the 57th minute for a 4-2, which seems pretty nice, doesn't it? I can imagine it maybe, MK starting to scramble a little bit. Don't know whether they pulled the netty or whatever, but, at that 3-2 down, they've got to do everything to sort of stay in it. And, wrapped up by Eric Henderson, who was in my team of the season last week and a big player. But, really, really good result for them. Yeah,
massive. And like you say, that great result for Telford, but also a great result for our group as well, which we'll go into the groups now and how it's kept it sort of level all the way through. So Group A, Swindon, as you have mentioned, have obviously qualified. Which position is still open to interpretation, I guess, at this minute. But they sit top at the minute, 4 played, 7 points. Sheffield are second, 4 played, 6 points. Romford in third, 4 played, 3 points. And Peterborough Phantoms bottom, 4 played, 2 points. So as we mentioned there, Sheffield still to play for with Romford, but Peterborough are out, unfortunately for them. But Romford have got 3 points to make up on Sheffield. So as you mentioned there, they need 4 points these last two games to get over it. But I suppose the good thing is for them, it's in their sort of. It's in their hands to look after. It's not as if like they're playing somebody else, get 4 points and see if Sheffield have won.
Yeah.
It's just a head-to-head. Whoever wins out of these two gets it done.
Yeah. It'd be a real good one to watch that. Obviously, if you was a neutral, it would be one to keep eyes on, or obviously get the stream if you can. In heart of hearts, Az, what's your thoughts about this one? Can you see Romford doing the unthinkable and getting all 4 points without giving Sheffield a point anywhere?
I'd love for it to go to the last day, but that means that Romford have got to go get a result at Sheffield on the Friday again, which is a tough ask by all means. You know, I generally would like it to go to the last day, so a nice little win on the Friday for Romford, and then I only see Sheffield going through, to be honest with you. But if it goes to the last day, big credit, and I think it's a nice learning curve for Romford as well. You know, it's a lot to take from this playoff series, and now they'll move forward as a club into next season. So we'll see how it plays out. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. There. I think this sort of experience for them, especially being with a young club, a young sort of group, will be massive for them going into next year. Obviously, they had that decent cup run a while back, didn't they? But a lot's changed since then. They've had players leave and imports have changed and things like that. But I think if they can keep their brick core and obviously again recruit really well, for me, I'd be trying to tap up Jarrett Baker straight away. You know, Leishon's been really good and Cole CC's been really good as well. One that probably don't get as much credit as he deserves. But yeah, like if they can, and obviously with that talk of the extra import coming in, you know, it's interesting, isn't it? I know that they're the one that with Miller going, they got Coxhead in. I know the Romford fans are a real big fan of him as well. So I think if they can just look in the team and think what do we need right now and what can we add extra, you know, they'll be able to do pretty well next season. I can see them getting into playoffs for sure, even before all the teams are sort of confirmed and stuff like that, because they've got a good core there. But I just think it might be too much of an ask to say that you're going to beat Sheffield and they're not going to get a point off you just because of how well they've been playing this year and the personnel that they've got. It's just a very, very tough ask.
Yeah. So just before we move on to the other group then, so first and second place, so Swindon obviously have qualified. They're quite, comfortably through. Do you think they'll be bothered about where the seed at the minute? I know it's hard to say because you look at our group and nobody's confirmed, so you aren't really starting to think, oh, we don't want to end up first really, because there's a clear leader in Group B. But do you think Swindon will want to take the lead of the group and play second, or do you think it's too much to really sort of pick out at the minute?
If I'm honest with you, I think we as fans think about that a lot, but I do think that Swindon will just want to do as well as they can. I think in the position that they're in, they almost don't need to think about other people, and other teams need to think about them because of how good they've been this season. Swindon need to approach that game, and they will approach that game as the favourites because, they've won the league, they've won it in good time. They've got such a good solid squad of 4 lines, and their injuries, touch wood, haven't really been there this season. They've been solid top to bottom. And, when you're playing with that confidence, wrapping up your playoff, group after 2 weeks, that kind of thing. I think the main thing for them, like we touched on earlier, is I don't think they'll be resting players, but I think they will be spreading the minutes, across the sort of lines. I could see them maybe giving Tyler Perry a game on maybe the Sunday night or something.
Yeah.
Just to sort of give Rennie a little bit of a rest, which I would be fine with if I was a Swindon fan, because he needs to be on it on the Saturday night. He's really important to them. But yeah, I think they'll go at it. I think obviously they won't want Peterborough to beat them at the Link, definitely not. And Peterborough away is a pretty hard to play place to go, isn't it? So I can see him going for it. I don't think they'll be thinking, oh well, let's try and drop points here so we can get matched up against Leeds or Milton Keynes, because in our group you can't tell who's going to be playing anyway, can you?
That's it, isn't it? I think the biggest thing for Swindon now is to sort of think about the mindset and preparation for Coventry, because I'm assuming it's still be on the minds what happened last year. They were so dominant in this phase and they did top their group maximum points, and then went to Coventry and it all fell apart. The wheels came off and it was a really lacklustre Swindon that turned up at Coventry. So I'm sure that'll be on the minds and how they prepare themselves. And the mindset that's needed to go to Coventry and play. I think that'll be the big part for them now.
The majority of that core is still at Swindon as well. So regardless of what people say, you can say it doesn't affect them or anything like that. It will be in their head. And they'll want to right that wrong.
Absolutely. So let's have a look at Group B then. So at current, Leeds United's top this group, 4 played, 6 points. Milton Keynes in second, 4 played, 4 points. Telford third, 4 played, 4 points. And the Hull Seahawks in fourth, 4 played, 4 points. So it is only goal difference that splits up sort of second, third and fourth at the moment. I think it doesn't really matter which way you want to look at this, who's second, third or fourth at the minute. These teams are all battling out, and fortunately for Leeds, I mean, not fortunately because they've worked hard, but they've managed to pick up those extra 1-pointers here and there. And, they've got that 2-point cushion, which could see them through.
Genuinely, mate, it sounds ridiculous because, like you were saying, they're meant to have like 4 or 5 players going next week. If they can find the numbers somehow and they can defend how they defended this week, I can see them getting 2 points over the next week, which sounds bizarre because obviously, they've got MK, which arguably I would say is the hardest team to sort of come up against in the playoffs at the moment in our group.
Yeah.
I just genuinely, with us and Telford, Telford fans will say the same as us. We need 4 points over this weekend. If you split those 2 points, I genuinely don't know how it goes because then it goes down to goal difference, and that 6-1 loss that we had against MK might be the definitive factor. So I don't think we can afford to lose this weekend. Telford can't afford to lose as well. I genuinely think if Leeds get 2 points, they're in. And if us or Telford get 4 points, we're in. And that's the way it is. MK need the same. MK need 4 points against Leeds. And I don't think they'll have had a better chance at that, this week or last week, just based on numbers. The bad thing for them is that they're coming up against Super Sam.
I mean, I've just thought about this myself now, but could you imagine on the first game that it goes to overtime? So Leeds pick up a point, but MK pick up the 2. And they could both still qualify from that. That's
very true. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And what if we all just split the points?
Yeah, you know what I mean. They could get beat, but a point from on that first game could be everything from that. That could qualify them pretty much there.
Those little points could be so definitive, couldn't they? Yeah, you're right. It's strange really because I've just been thinking in my head all along. Leeds and it's either out of Leeds and MK and us and Telford. But you are right. Even if even if MK and do you mean like Leeds got an overtime point and they got them to 7? Yeah, and we split points, then we're out, aren't we? Like,
yeah.
Dreadful to think I haven't thought about that yet.
Milton Keynes could win both games against Leeds, but if Leeds managed to take one to overtime, that could qualify them. Imagine losing both your games, but just because you got to overtime, you've snuck in.
Wow, crazy.
It's mega, isn't it?
Because that's it as well. Like, I think arguably, if you was a betting man, you'd bet for Telford, us to beat Telford at home, and if you was a neutral, you'd probably say Telford to beat us at home, just because both teams are so good at home. If you're a Seahawks fan, you're going to say that we're going to go to Telford and we're going to win. But if you're a Telford fan, you probably also think the reverse as well. That they'll come and give us a game because they have been to us before. I know last season was a big one, wasn't they, where they absolutely just caused carnage.
Yeah.
So they're more than capable of it. And again, what was it? 2 point week. Well, they'll just come off a big win against MK, haven't they? So they'll be full of confidence as well. So yeah, God knows.
So we're both obviously Seahawks fans, and we think that we're going to get the job done this weekend, coming and qualify. Who's your last place going to then at the minute? Do you think it'll be Leeds or MK? And I know that's a bit of an awkward one because Leeds are obviously in a bit of a predicament going into this weekend. But who are you backing at the minute?
To be honest, like I said, if they can get the numbers, I think it'll be Leeds because MK have proven this week and last that they're prone to a fumble. They came to us and didn't play well, and obviously they've gone to Telford, and it looks like Telford have got the better end of them. From the stories that I've heard, they came with the exact approach that they did when they came to us. Tried to get rough, tried to get Aggie and stuff like that, and again they fell on the backsides. if they go to Leeds and try and do that, Leeds are a good enough team defensively to sort of withhold those teams that do that. We're an aggressive team, and in the end, we just had to start trying to play ice hockey instead of doing that aggressive physical game, because I don't think we was going to get the success of doing the rough and tumble. So if MK go do that, I think Leeds are wise enough and they've got the player and the experience to sort of soak it up and pounce on them on the power play. So I think Leeds will get 2 points this weekend, arguably. So that could see them through. Looking at the standings now, though, obviously, if us and Telford split 2 points, it looks like MK would sneak through on goal difference, don't it? Which, yeah, crazy. Who do you think anyway? Who do you think MK Leeds?
I'm just thinking Leeds going to be, numbers are down. I just don't see how they get the job done. I think MK are going to go for this the best they can. I think, in all honesty, I think they would rather skip Swindon as well out of the two. And I think if MK could finish top here and bowl Leeds over twice and potentially be facing Sheffield, I think they'd massively prefer that over Swindon, to be honest.
Yeah, I think any team would want to, if you could choose. I don't know. It's hard, isn't it? Would you choose to play Swindon or would you choose to play? I think, to be fair, I think Sheffield have got got one over on MK a few times this year. So that's a real hard matchup against that. In Swindon and them, like Swindon and Sheffield is rough.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, I know what you mean though. Like, I think I'm just being a wishful thinker for Leeds fans, to be honest. Like, if they are genuinely down to 2 lines, it's going to be hard to get past that 40-minute mark and still be fresh, isn't it?
Well, you might survive the first night, which might be all they need, but that second night it won't be good looking.
It's tough, won't it?
Yeah.
Might have one of the backup netties as a forward. Kitting up.
Still wearing his pads. Barreling through.
Yeah.
Well, that sort of wraps it up there then, mate. So we'll have a look on to now the games this coming weekend, and that'll summarise and finish the episode. So now let's have a look at this coming weekend and the final fixtures of the playoff group phase, starting with Friday the 10th of April, and it's Sheffield Steel Dogs hosting the Romford Raiders. So I know we've briefly mentioned this in our last segment, but do you still stick by it? Would you hope Romford get this done, or do you think Sheffield will get it done regardless?
Head says Sheffield. Heart would like to say Romford, but sorry, Romford fans. If Swindon are going there and getting a point, I think it's a really tough ask for a lot of teams. I think Sheffield are just so good defensively. They did it to Leeds not too long ago in cup final. They just got a way of not dragging out games, because that might be a bit disrespectful to them. But like, if the other team tries to take a few steps ahead, just dragging them back, and that's even if they haven't scored umpteen goals because of Genjinov and Sommer and all these brilliant players. So yeah, for me, sadly, I would go if I was to do. Well, I'll be doing the predictor later on in the week, obviously, but I think I'll comfortably be going for Steel Dogs. Sadly.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And also, just an additional for me would be, I think if Sheffield get it done on this night, they can save some players for travelling on the Sunday and just say, to a couple of imports, you know what, have the night off and prepare yourself for Cov the week after. And then, they get a nice win at home, round it out nicely at the Pound, and like you say, they can rest a few on the Sunday, and jobs are good done then, innit?
Yeah, definitely. That's not actually a bad shout, that as well, because they borrow players from Steelers, don't they? So you be Yorkling and stuff like that, you can say have a night off. Fair. Yeah, that's a good shout.
So Saturday's games, the 11th of April, and the first game is Hull Seahawks hosting the Telford Tigers. So again, we back ourselves by putting the home game first, which is a Saturday, which is the unusual day for us. Is it obvious? And we're just going to back Seahawks here, but are we expecting some sort of resistance from Telford and not an easy walkover?
Don't think it'll be easy. I think if it's the kind of game, isn't it, where if something doesn't go right for one team, the other team might start going to panic stations. Arguably, if you are going to go there and you've got a team like Telford who sort of can look after themselves, as long as you avoid the big hitters, I think you'll be all right. But I tell you what, I back Seahawks, but I could see a hell of some matchups here. I could see the likes of Fielder and Hodge and Chamberlain and Gallus or something. Like, you imagine the tilts that we can get in this game. It'd be, if you haven't bought your ticket already and you live in Hull or the surrounding areas, then get it done because it'll be a hell of a game.
Yeah, I mean, I think because we're the home team, the onus is on us to go get this done a little bit more than Telford. I think they can come and try and disrupt us and maybe feel the way into the series as opposed to us. I think we need to just foot to the ground, get this done. And I think it has to be done in regulation. We can't go to overtime here. We can't afford to give a point away to Telford here. We need to get this done in 60 minutes. So very much for me, the onus on us to get it done. But I'm expecting a resistant Telford to turn up as well.
I agree.
The second game is Swindon Wildcats hosting the Peterborough Phantoms. I think this is a bit of a weird sort of series to call because of the position both teams are in. One's in, one's out. I hate to say it, but just the Phantoms got there to maybe cause a bit of chaos and havoc and maybe light a few people up and make it harder for Swindon. I know it's not really gamesman or whatnot, but do they do it? Or does Swindon just sort of not go at it 100%? Or do they try different lines? It's hard to call this one.
The thing is, you do that and then you get Tyler Close trying to run you over. It's like a train, isn't it? So, like, probably, do you want to have a big black eye for the off-season?
But then in the fight, does he, do something to his hand, break his wrist or something fighting, and then, Aaron's going to be a bit fuming, isn't he, when he's like, Tyler, what you done? You've knuckled him, nice one, but now you've broken your hand.
I can see this being a real tame game of hockey, if I'm honest. Which might be famous last words for Swindon and Peterborough fans, but I think with Peterborough not having much to play for, I genuinely just think it'll be sort of like almost like an exhibition match, like one of those games that we had in the last couple of weekends of the season where everything's already sort of settled and you're just going out to sort of, give the fans a show a little bit.
Things are nan for some of this, don't it? Just tip for side. Just go for it.
Let's have a show.
It's an hard one to call, but like I say, I hope there's some entertainment there and it doesn't turn into dancing on ice. And
I can see Swindon trying to build a bit of momentum there. So again, if I had to choose a team, I'd probably lean towards Swindon.
I think for this one, I'm going to go for Swindon just because it's at the link.
Yeah.
MK host Leeds Knights, the last game on the Saturday. What
probably,
are you thinking?
if I'm being honest, if I were Leeds, probably not the way around that you'd want this. If I were Leeds, I would want to be playing at home first because I think MK will beat them in regulation, and then I think it's all on Leeds to sort of get something from the game on the Sunday. Which also scares me because then I feel like Leeds are really good in that pressure cooker situation where, they leave it, like, even if it's left late or something. Look at what happened on Saturday. I think they just have the players and stuff to get that done, which is very, very scary because you throw out the hypothetical of, MK getting the 2 points, which puts them up to 6. And then on the Sunday, I don't know, MK and Leeds split the points and Leeds gets through on 7 points. I don't know. It's horrible. If you're going game by game, I would go MK in this one. They've just proven last couple of weeks, haven't they, how good they can be at home, and they're a really, really hard team to play when they're at home. Yeah,
I agree with you. I think I'm just going for the home team here. I think MK will get this done. It's either going to be really close, like a 3-2, or it's going to be something like a 5-1 due to the numbers. I don't know, but. I mean, if they do get a bit of a pasting, it could help us, depending on what points lie. True. It could help, Leeds' goal difference could suffer a bit here, because I think they was on like 0. I think they'd scored as many as they conceded. So, if they was to get a bit of a tonking.
If we beat Telford and then puts their goal difference down, then we might slip into second spot. That's a good shout, actually. Oh.
Right, so Sunday, first game on the Sunday at 4:15. So I just want to note that because this is an early face-off. Leeds Knights host to Milton Keynes. So by the time we play at 6 o'clock, this one will be deep, deep waters and we'll sort of know what we have to do.
That is so rough, isn't it? Can you imagine how many times they'll be refreshing in the change rooms there? 4:15, it shouldn't be allowed. Every game should have to start at the same time, shouldn't it? Because if Leeds go ahead and then like get a 4-5 niller or something like that, then I don't know. Where does it put you? To be fair, there isn't really a situation in this game, correct me if I'm wrong, where Seahawks will sort of be like way out for the count if they have one on the Saturday, or Telford, So I don't think it'll be a case where like, oh, you look at the result, oh, well, we can't get through now, so we're not going to try our hardest. I think if Telford or Hull get a 4-point weekend, you're in, aren't you?
Yeah.
So, like I said earlier, I think Leeds can get 2 points from this weekend. So outside odds because of the personnel and stuff, I'm going to get back Leeds in this one.
Oh, I'm going to go MK again.
Yeah.
But I know where you're coming from at the Castle. They might be able to draft a few in. I don't know.
Super God is going to do it, I'm telling you.
Yeah. So the second game on the Sunday, Romford Raiders hosting the Sheffield Steel Dogs. So this one could be a formality, and this one could also just play out how it needs to play out, really, depending on what happens on the Friday night. If Romford get the job done on Friday night, this one could have serious ramifications on who goes through. But we both think that Sheffield get the job done on the Friday, which means that this one should just be a play-out exhibition. Let's have another 9-8.
Yeah. Even if not, though, Sheffield are a hell of a road team, aren't they? Like, they beat Peterborough 7-3 last week. Like, who does that? Who does that?
Yeah.
No, Peterborough always winning their home ice, don't they? And they just absolutely squashed them. So, yeah, unfortunately, I'm sorry, Romford fans, but I could see Sheffield with 4 points this weekend.
Moving on then, Peterborough Phantoms hosting the Swindon Wildcats. For me, this is just it's the last game at home for Peterborough, so they put on a bit of a show.
Go to the bang.
They might not have that top line next season, depending on who signs. So it could be, the top line puts on a big show if it's not going to be the same, line next season. I think Peterborough might sneak this one just for respect to their own fans and a bit of
like a 4-3 or something. Like 4-2 or something, maybe. Yeah, that's actually not a bad shout. I'd probably follow it with that one.
Yeah. And the last game is Telford Tigers hosting the Hull Seahawks, and we are going to be nipping at this point.
If it goes our way on Saturday.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, then we are going to have to rely on goal difference and things going our way, which is mental, isn't it?
I think if we go into this game and aim for a minimum of a point, I'd be happy, and it might be enough, depending on what happens with Leeds, because we'd be on 7 points.
That's true. Yeah, that's
true.
True.
Nobody else has done it so far. Leeds or MK haven't gone and got really anything from Telford thus far, but we need to get a point minimum. If we can pick up 3 points, it should be enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't stop thinking about it. Yeah, I've not thought about that either. My thoughts have just been we need 4 points. I can see you can see Telford grinding one out, can't you? It's a bit scary, really. I'm gonna go heart over head though. I'm gonna go Seahawks.
I hope we do, and I hope we just get it done. 4 points, wrap it up, done. But you just can't just stay away from the fact that they're beating. No.
They are such a good team, and they've really worked hard to be in the position that they're in. So fair play to them. Oh, this will be a hell of a game. A hell of a game. I can just
last game we played against them, where it was. Remember the commentator for the stream, and he was a bit like, it's a bit of a naff game, this, and then it just kicked into life, didn't it? And I'm sure they took it in the end, didn't they? Or did we take it? I think we maybe took it actually.
Yeah.
But it was an horrible game to watch. And if that's how it's going to be there on that last game where everything could matter.
I remember the review of it, and I was saying, like, what is David Thompson doing smashing into people? He's the top line forward. He shouldn't be doing that, but it's just the exact sort of team you get with Telford, don't you? It's physical and they're really good at their own barn. So, God, it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be some weekends to finish it up, mate. And, we'll be there in person for our home game. Might be going to Telford on the Sunday. That might be quite interesting to watch. But some weekend coming up, mate, and we'll have all the answers by this time sort of next week. We'll know who's going and who isn't, and we can start talking about the Final Four and who's going to be playing for the silverware.
And if there's no Slapshot Syndicate episode next week, you know why. Because we got 0 point weekend and we're all great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that wraps up then this week, mate. Another episode in the bag. Emotions are being toyed with. I mean, I've been off work as you have this past sort of week or so. Yeah. The fact now I've got to go back to work and get through 4 days before ice hockey comes back. I don't know how I'm supposed to get through when there's a lot on my mind.
Yeah, no, that's fair. You know what, though? On the flip side, Brad said to me this week, he was like, at least I've got work to take my mind off things. I bet you're sat at home thinking about hockey all week, aren't you? And I was like, no comment.
I'd rather, mate. It's been a great week this past week, I'm glad our group has played out the way it has to some extent, because the thrills and spills of playoff hockey have been there in every single game. The other group's been pretty much sewn up from the off, which is it is what it is, I know, but you want the excitement, don't you?
Of course you do. Group B's turning out much better than Group A. No offence, guys.
With that said then, mate, another episode done. Thanks everybody for watching. Keep liking, subscribing. Keep getting involved. I think a lot of people are starting to move away from the Slapshot messaging channels now, because they know you're at the head of it, and they're coming more towards me and Brad. So there's some nice. There's been some nice messages of some ideas of your punishments come the Coventry weekend, mate. I can tell you now. So
I'll bet. Yeah,
you're in for an absolute blinder.
Seen a couple of people this weekend come up to us and start giggling, and I'm thinking, what have you got on your mind? So, not something I'm looking forward to be honest. Not looking forward to going through all the pubs and people giving me the shirt, being like, right, it's time for a picture.
Yeah.
Sake,
your job is to now do a conga on this pub wearing an MK shirt.
No. It'll be great. It'll be a great weekend. It's one we look forward to all the time, and it's very much looking forward to it.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, folks, and we'll see you next week on the episode. And I'm hoping we have made it through.
Slapshot Syndicate, pure ambition. 3 mics, 1 mission. Azza and Rossy, yeah, that's the crew. Dropping knowledge, what you gonna do?